everybody. Welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com.
Happy Wednesday morning and happy 2017. This is episode 156 of the Abroaders podcast for Wednesday, January 4th. It's great to be back with everybody. This is Eric checking in from Grand Ledge, Michigan. And on today's show, we are going to talk about carrier-imposed fees. Those are the out-of-pocket taxes and fees that you pay when you redeem points for an award ticket. And so for the core content today, I'm going to get into some more detail about how those fees actually work. There's not a whole lot that you can actually do about the taxes. Those are mandatory, but there are some carrier-imposed or airline-imposed fuel surcharges, which you can do something about. And if you understand how they work, you can tend to avoid a lot of unnecessary costs and reduce the out-of-pocket amount that you're going to pay on your award ticket. So I will be getting into that after we cover this week's headlines. And again, show notes for today's episode are going to be at abroaders.com/156. Thanks for being with us. This week's headlines include Starwood Preferred Guest eliminates Virgin America on short notice, but there is still time to do something about it. So we're going to get into that. Korean Airways SkyPass program puts some SkyTeam partners booking online. That's a big deal. And Southwest makes a major change that impacts your ability to get the companion pass. We also have a close call in Los Angeles with an EVA flight, a very interesting video from Ted explaining overbooking that I want to share with you guys in the show notes. Virgin Australia saves Christmas, and the U.S. Virgin Islands will pay you to visit. And lastly, a quick look at January Flying Blue Promo Awards. All right, so let's get into the news. Okay, so today's top story is Virgin America is no longer going to be a transfer partner of Starwood Preferred Guest starting on January 6th. So I believe that that's going to mean that Thursday the 5th is your last day to make a transfer. And the reason that this is important, now Virgin America is a partner in itself of Starwood until Thursday, but the real reason that you might want to make a move before this deadline is if you'd like to get an extra good transfer rate from Starwood Preferred Guest to Alaska. So as you guys probably know, Virgin America and Alaska have just finalized their merger. It is going forward, and they've announced that Virgin America Elevate points are going to transfer to Alaska Mileage Plan at a 1.3 to 1 transfer rate. And so Virgin America's program has always had sort of a higher value currency. Their awards cost less in terms of the total number of points, and the points are just generally worth more. And so it was sort of expected for quite some time that the transfer rate would probably be better than 1 to 1. But this has just sort of created a really nice arbitrage opportunity where you can get effectively a 62.5% bonus on transferring Starwood Preferred Guests. So as you may remember from previous episodes, Starwood points transfer to their partner programs in increments of 20,000. You get an extra 5,000 bonus. So generally, if Starwood's a 1-to-1 partner with somebody, you can transfer as few as 1,000 miles if you have no status, or if you have some elite status, you can actually transfer as few as 1 Starwood Preferred Guest point to another program. But if you transfer in larger increments of 20,000 miles, you're going to be able to get a 5,000 bonus. So the math here works out that you could transfer 20,000 Starwood Preferred Guest points, create 25,000 Virgin America Elevate points, and then transfer those 25,000 Elevate points over to Alaska Mileage Plan and get 32,500. Now, Virgin America was removed as a partner from the Starwood Preferred Guest website, but it's still possible to transfer over the phone. And I'm going to actually make that call right after recording this. So if I'm able to record it, I will put that on the show as well. But hopefully some of you guys are going to be able to take advantage of this as well. I think at the moment I only have 37,000 Starwood preferred guest points. So I think I'm going to just transfer over 20,000 of them. 30,000 Alaska miles, or 32.5 to be precise, is enough for a lot of one-way awards. And Alaska allows a stopover on a one-way. So I think this is a really good deal. I'm going to jump on it with at least 20,000 of my Starwood preferred guest points. Really wish I had paid a little bit more attention and gotten ready. I didn't realize this was going to shut down quite so quickly because it would have been really helpful to top up my Starwood account to 40,000 points beforehand.
Awesome. How can I assist you today?
Yeah, so I'm calling to see if you can help me transfer some of my Starwood points to Virgin America.
Sure. Do you have your SPG number by any chance?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'll take that. And could you verify the address that we have on file, please? And how many points were you looking to transfer?
So I'd like to transfer 20,000 for sure. I was curious, is it possible to buy points and have them post instantly? Or I was hoping I could get to 40,000. I've only got, I think, 37 something, and I was hoping to actually transfer 40,000 so I could get 50,000 in my Virgin America account.
So you said you want to do the 20,000 first, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So it would be a total of 25,000 that you would get with Virgin America. Transfers for this airline are a 1-to-1 ratio. They take up to 4 to 6 business days.
Okay.
The name on your SPG account, is it the exact same as your airline account?
It should be. It's Eric Paquette on my my Virgin America account.
Okay, perfect. We should be fine. All transfers are final. Once transferred, you cannot return the SPG points back to your account. Only one transfer is allowed within a 24-hour period.
Okay.
And then again, you get the 5,000 bonus points after the 20,000 you transfer.
Okay, very good. And you said you think if I make a purchase through the website, I will be able to see those posts instantly?
It should be instantly, yes.
Okay. By the way, do you have any information about when transfers to Virgin America are ending? I read online that this is going to get closed down and they're not going to be a transfer partner anymore.
Good question. I would try and contact Virgin America and see what they say.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see any kind of notification or information on my end regarding that.
Okay.
Might have better luck if you contact them.
All right, I'll check in with them about it. Thanks so much. I appreciate your help.
You're welcome. Thank you for being a loyal member with us. I hope you have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Next up, we have Korean Air's SkyPass program is putting SkyTeam Awards online. And this is pretty exciting news. So SkyPass is one of the lesser known transfer partners of Chase Ultimate Rewards. And Korean is a really great program for booking award tickets on Korean Air, simply because very few people actually seem to be booking these tickets. And so they have very good award availability. But it has always been a huge hassle to use Korean Air points and book on any other airlines. And the reason for that is that they had sort of a convoluted ticketing system where you would have to reserve your ticket, put it on hold, call, fill out a redemption form. And then, it's just a really long and involved process to actually book on partner airlines. Now, Korean's non-SkyTeam partners are still going to have to be booked over the phone. And they do have some good ones. And in some cases, it might be worth doing. This is something that we do for clients with our concierge booking service a decent amount. So the non-alliance partners for Korean SkyPass are Alaska Airlines, Emirates, Etihad, GOL, which is a Brazil carrier that I use a lot, Hawaiian Airlines, and Jet Airways. So if you do want to book on one of those, you're still going to have to call, but it looks like at least the majority of SkyTeam airlines are going to be bookable through the website now, which is really exciting news. So hopefully that is valuable. A couple of highlights from their award chart. Round trip from the U.S. to Hawaii in economy for $25,000 and business for $45,000. business class between the US and Europe for $80,000 round trip, and first class between the US and Asia for $80,000 one way. So those are, pretty competitive. Definitely business class round trip between the US and Europe at 80,000 miles is going to be quite a bit less than the best other programs. Right now, you're seeing a lot of Delta tickets at 62,500 to 80,000 one way in business class. And American's cheapest business class tickets are 50, but a lot of them are actually 57 or 55. So this is quite a bit better than the pricing. So if you have Chase Ultimate Rewards and you have the choice between transferring to United or transferring to Korean and booking on a partner to Europe, this could be a really good opportunity. And now just a little bit lower bar in terms of the level of patience that you have to be able to confirm these tickets. Our next story is unfortunately not a positive one, and it deals with earning the Southwest Rapid Rewards Companion Pass. Now, the Companion Pass is one of the best deals in points and miles, especially for folks that travel with a companion domestically in the United States. And so the way that it works is if you earn 110,000 points in a calendar year, you are eligible for a free companion ticket on both paid airfare and mileage redemptions for the rest of that year and the following year, which means that now is an exceptional time of the year to get the companion pass, because if you're able to earn that 110,000 points sometime in the early part of 2017, you'll get the companion pass for the rest of 2017 and also for all of 2018. So this is kind of a big deal. Now, for those of you who are concerned, it is still possible to earn the companion pass by signing up for credit cards, both the Chase business card and the Chase personal. There's two versions of the personal card that are currently available. And so it is possible to get the sign-up bonuses on these Chase products if you haven't had them before and earn 100,000 points. So there's 50,000 point bonus on both cards. And so that's going to get you most of the way there. The spending requirement is 2,000, I believe, on both the business and personal version. So that's going to put you at 104, and then you'll just have $6,000 in regular spending to accomplish to be able to get the companion pass. So that option is still there. What's changed is that you can no longer use transfer partners from hotel and car programs such as the Marriott hotel package to earn the companion pass. So previously, both Hyatt and Marriott were options to transfer to Southwest. And if you redeemed Marriott points for a hotel and air package, there were a lot of cool deals where you could basically get a hotel stay of 5 to 7 nights and also get a certain number of airline miles. And Southwest was one of those transfer partners. And so you're no longer going to be able to count those towards a companion pass. Definitely bad news. And I'm disappointed that we didn't have any advance notice here. Hopefully nobody got caught in the middle of one of those transfers. But, things like this are going to change. Companion pass is probably one of the most generous benefits that's out there. So I'm not really surprised about this. And, I'm glad to see that it's still possible to grab that benefit using some rewards credit cards. Okay, so the next story I wanted to share is that Delta has announced that they're going to be adding Jet Airways as a SkyMiles partner. This is not going to happen until March 1st, so there's a little bit of time before you're actually going to be able to redeem SkyMiles on Jet Airways. And by the way, this is an India carrier, so this is pretty regional to the Indian continent and some areas around Europe and Asia. But if you do have travel plans in that part of the world, this could be a big benefit. But not till March 1st are you going to be able to actually redeem SkyMiles on Jet Airways. However, the other news here, for those of you that are interested in earning elite status with Delta, Jet Airways is a tier 1 partner for Delta SkyMiles, and you can already earn Delta miles on Jet Airways flights. So if you buy Jet Airways flights in the meantime, you are going to earn Delta SkyMiles. You're going to be able to earn elite qualifying dollars, or medallion qualifying dollars as Delta calls them, and pretty hefty SkyMiles bonuses, especially in business and first class. So there are some opportunities there for folks that are going to be traveling in India. Next up, we've got a quick look at the Flying Blue promo awards. Just wanted to share, there's not any amazing deals. So these are awards that need to be booked in January, and they're going to be for travel generally from March 1st to the 31st. There are a couple of promo awards in here that are for April, so for April 1st to the 30th. And typically promo awards are for bookings about 3 months in advance, and you get either a 25% or a 50% discount on select routes. And so nothing exceptional, I don't think, this time. Usually the ones that I really like to look out for are 50% off business class, which can be a really big deal. And at this point, the only hubs or only routes in North America that are going to be available, all of them, the maximum discount is 25. I would say there are some pretty high quality airports here: Mexico City, Chicago. We've got New York, JFK, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Vancouver. So all those destinations do have a slight discount to Europe. Some of them are business class, some of them are economy, but so probably worth taking a look at Flying Blue's promo awards if you are considering a trip to Europe sometime in the near future. There are also other regions of the world that are included, but it's generally for travel to and from Europe. So you've got a few routes from Africa to Europe, a few routes from Asia. So you can check out the rest of the website, and we will link in the show notes to the rest of the promo awards so you can give those guys a look. Okay, so a couple more stories for this week that I wanted to share, and I'm just going to run through these kind of quickly so we can get to the core content, but we will have links in the show notes as well. There's a pretty close call, it seems like, the week of Christmas from an Eva Air flight that was bound for Taipei, departed from LAX, and the air traffic control was pretty interesting. Sounded like, just a lot of confusion going on. And basically the plane was kept at about 6,000 feet and was headed towards the mountains, which were just over 6,000 feet. The FAA is investigating, and so we'll have a formal report relatively soon. But if you're interested, I always find the air traffic control audio files kind of interesting. And the YouTube video is actually kind of shows the radar map as well, and each of the planes checking in. So pretty interesting situation. Now, in light of that, I know lots of folks are already afraid of flying, but just to remind everybody, the U.S. was once again a perfect record this year for U.S. carriers. No fatalities for air carriers this year. Now, obviously, there were a couple of tragedies in 2016 for international carriers, but overall, by and large, air travel is by far the safest way to get around, a lot safer than driving for sure. So I've got an interesting post that talks about the safety record in particular for the U.S. airlines if you get a little bit nervous after checking out that EVA near close call in California. I also wanted to share with you guys a video about overbooking. I really love TED Talks in general. I think they do an awesome job and have some really gifted and incredible inspirational speakers and stories to share. But this one is a short one. It is only about, I think about 5 minutes long, and it explains overbooking, which I thought was by far the best explanation of overbooking and how it works, how the airlines calculate probabilities of whether or not you're going to show up. And I studied econ, so I had to go through a lot of this crap at University of Michigan about probability and statistics, and I truly, truly hated it. And I wish somebody had used an example like this because it made things make a lot more sense. So if you're curious why sometimes the airline is able to sell too many seats and actually force you to not take a flight that you already paid for because they sold more than one person your seat, this is a really nice explanation and kind of poses the question, I suppose, about whether this is in fact ethical and something that airlines should be allowed to do. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Last but not least, I mentioned earlier in the show, Virgin Australia had a pretty cool Christmas promo where they helped everybody on the flight that missed Christmas enjoy Christmas with some nice upgrades and some bonuses. For those of you who didn't realize this was something I hadn't thought about either, flights taking off from Los Angeles on the 24th of December actually land in Sydney on the 26th of December. So unfortunately, those folks go through a modern day time warp and actually miss Christmas Day entirely. And so Virgin Australia Australia, gave a bunch of upgrades of elite status, some free miles away, Christmas dinner, and passed out some gifts on the flight. So I thought that was pretty cool. And last but not least, I have a link to a story about the U.S. Virgin Islands, who is offering a $300 spending credit to people who visit in 2017. So if you're interested in the U.S. Virgin Islands, I'm pretty sure it's a place that you can go if you don't have a passport. So that could be a cool option, nice and warm. And it seems like this is a relatively open type of thing. There are specific locations where you can use the credit, but it seems like a pretty generous promotion. So it might be worth checking out if you have interest in visiting the U.S. Virgin Islands. Okay, so that wraps it up for the news and updates part of the show. Again, show notes are going to be at abroaders.com/156. Okay, so now it's time to talk about taxes and carrier-imposed fuel surcharges. The goal here is just to help you guys avoid paying more than necessary for your award tickets. And so when you redeem points, the points cover your airfare, which you would expect would be the majority of the ticket. But unfortunately, airlines add, and this is a relatively recent thing, airlines add fuel surcharges, which are just another component to the ticket that is not being covered by frequent flyer points. And so, there's obviously taxes and airport type fees that get added to every ticket. And, those are obviously something that you are going to have to pay. But the fuel surcharges can really add up to a lot of money. And so it's important to know how these work, because there are a couple of different ways that you can avoid the fuel surcharge component. And that can potentially save you anywhere from $200 to $1,000 of out-of-pocket costs when you redeem miles for a ticket. Now, the other thing to be aware of with fuel surcharges is that or taxes and fees in general, is that these apply. So these are the parts that you pay out of pocket with mileage tickets, but you can actually cover them with flexible types of points. So it's possible to cover them with points like Capital One No Hassle Rewards, or with Barclay Arrival Miles. So there's a few options where you can actually end up paying $0 for an award ticket, but you have to make a separate redemption here. So in other words, if you redeem American Airlines miles, 30,000 miles for a one-way flight to Europe, and the taxes and fees are $150, you can use your Barclay card to pay for that ticket and be able to get, say, use your Arrival card and get a statement credit refunded back to you for the taxes and fees if you have enough Barclay points. So it is possible to avoid them that way, but bottom line is that if possible, the way that you book your ticket, and especially the airline that you fly with, can be used to avoid having to pay these fees in the first place. So as I said, the taxes and mandatory airport fees are things that you can't avoid at all. But typically these cost somewhere between $5 and maybe $50 out of pocket on a ticket that you booked with points. And so the fuel surcharges generally are around $200, but can range as high as $1,000. And so that's what we're going to talk about avoiding. And just to give you guys an example, I looked up a flight from New York City to London and back, and was taking a look at British Airways, who is notorious for these fuel surcharges. And an economy flight, this particular one that I was looking at was sometime in the middle of January. Economy flight was charging about $200 in fuel surcharges, and the business class flight was charging $828 in fuel surcharges. So really significant. And fortunately, there are three potential ways that you can protect yourself from these costs. So first of all, let's talk about how fuel surcharges are determined. That's going to be the airline that operates your flight is the first factor. And so there's some airlines that do add these to the cost of the tickets and some airlines that don't. So that's sort of the most important thing. The second one is your origin and destination. There are certain regions of the world where fuel surcharges either don't exist or are especially low. And in particular, there's a law in Brazil that prevents any airlines from adding fuel surcharges on flights that originate in Brazil. So if you depart from Brazil to anywhere in the world, there won't be fuel surcharges on that ticket. Now, it's not, probably something that's worth positioning to Brazil unless you're already in South America and relatively close. But it's good to know that that exists, and there's probably some other regions of the world as well. The United States, within the United States, so domestic flights, there aren't really any fuel surcharges. So you're just going to pay the 9/11 security fee, which comes out to about $6 each way. And then the last factor, and this is really important because this is the one that you can most often change, is the frequent flyer program that you use to book travel. The first line of defense, as I said, is the airline. Not all of them include fuel surcharges, and some of them charge relatively small amounts that aren't worth worrying about. So for example, if you take a look at a flight from New York City to Berlin, you've got a couple of options when you're redeeming miles on oneworld carriers. So American Airlines for this route has only $200 in fuel surcharges, still not super small. But if you look at Air Berlin on the exact same route, they charge $516 for an economy flight. And so that's a big difference. And they're both members of the One World Alliance. And so the point is that most types of points that can book flights on American Airlines can also book flights on Air Berlin. And so it doesn't really matter what the actual ticket price is. The fuel surcharges are a component of that. And I highly recommend using ITA Matrix, which is ITA software, is owned by Google. And it's one of the few airline searches that allows you to actually see the fare breakdown and see all the different components. So with this particular example, you can actually see, so there's a U.S. international departure tax, there's the 9/11 security fee, there's passenger facility charge, immigration fee, customs fee, German passenger charge. So there's all these government imposed things, and those add up to like maybe $120 or something like that. So that would be sort of the mandatory minimum amount of fees that you could pay. And then after that, it's all fuel surcharges. And so, ITA software is really helpful for you just being able to see comparatively which airlines charge these fees and how much the fuel surcharges are that are actually being added onto your ticket. That way you can figure out how much you'd expect to pay on the route that you're thinking about redeeming miles. As I mentioned, the second line of defense is the region of the world. And so if you are thinking about booking travel to or from Brazil, that can be important to know. And also, just kind of keep an eye on that factor. It's not going to come into play a lot, but there are different sort of dynamics. So one of them is that the fuel surcharges tend to be a lot higher, or maybe it's the taxes, but the out-of-pocket costs tend to be a lot higher when you book from Europe to the United States versus when you book from the United States to Europe. And so one of the techniques here is that it can be actually advantageous with some programs to book a round trip from the US to Europe rather than booking two one-ways, because I think Delta is a really good example here where at least up to a few months ago, if you booked a round trip that starts in the US, you pay way lower taxes, way lower fuel surcharges on the Delta operated flight or with one of their partners than you actually pay if you book two separate one ways and add up the fuel surcharges together. So there are some regional things, but the third line of defense is the frequent flyer program that you use. So if you're not able to manipulate sort of the region or the part of the world or whether it's a one-way or round trip, and you are flying on an airline that does have fuel surcharges that are significant, the third line of defense is the mileage program. So I want to give you guys an example here of two travelers that are sitting next to each other on the same flight from Frankfurt to New York. And one of these travelers booked their ticket with United Mileage Plus, and one of them booked their ticket with Aeroplan. And so the person that booked with United Mileage Plus is going to have paid $122.86 in taxes and fees. Those are the mandatory fees. And the person that booked with Aeroplan ended up paying $340.36 in total charges because of an extra $217 in fuel surcharges. And the reason for that is that Aeroplan tax on fuel surcharges, and they pass those through to members of their frequent flyer program that are redeeming points. And United Mileage Plus is one of the programs that protects you. So this is really helpful to know. And if you're in a position where you're going to be using a airline that has these fuel surcharges, you want to consider using a frequent flyer program to book that doesn't pass those charges on to you. So there's a little bit more involved in this, and we're going to be putting out a course relatively soon, big update to our Udemy course that we launched last year that has a lot more information on this material. I actually pulled a lot of the stuff and some of the examples here from the material for the course, but I thought that it would be helpful to just share that on the podcast. We haven't talked about this guy since I think episode 20. So it's been a couple of years. Love to hear any questions or experiences that you guys had with fuel surcharges or with, strange or expensive out-of-pocket costs on award tickets. That'll wrap it up for this week's show. Thank you very much for being with us. Again, happy 2017, and I will see you next week.
Hey, Broaders, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Eric or AJ at abroaders.com.